In our headlines on this Tuesday, August 26th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump touch upon prospects of engaging North Korea for peace on the peninsula and on boosting cooperation in shipbuilding during their first summit at the White House. And addressing an audience at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C., after his agenda at the White House, President Jae-myung touts a Seoul-Washington partnership rooted in pragmatism on the three pillars of security, economy, and technology. Meanwhile, back here on the local political front, in a tight leadership race that went down to the wire, the main opposition People Power Party elects Jang Dong-hyeok as its new leader. Today, we start with team coverage of the first summit between President Lee Jae-myung and U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House, where the South Korean leader called on his U.S. counterpart to take on the role of peacemaker with regard to North Korea, as he assumes the role of pacemaker to support related efforts. Arirang's Yoon Jung-min files this report from Washington, D.C.
Much of the focus at the Oval Office meeting was on resuming dialogue with North Korea, as President Lee Jae-myung met his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, on Monday.
얼마 전에 김여정이 미국과 저를 비난하는 발언을 할 때도 대통령과 김정은 위원장의 특별한 관계에 대해서는 의심하지 않는다 이런 표현을 했습니다. 기다리고 있다는 뜻으로 보여졌습니다. 한반도의 평화의 새 길을 꼭 열어주시기 바랍니다.
I will do that and we'll have talks. He'd like to meet with me.
Saying that he wished to see a Trump Tower being constructed in North Korea and play golf there. He asked Trump to play a peacemaker role for peace on the Korean peninsula. And Trump expressed his hope of meeting Kim Jong-un this year. The American leader touted his personal ties with Kim, saying they get along really well. When asked whether he will be attending the APEC leaders meeting later this year in Korea, he said he expects to visit Korea soon for a trade meeting. On top of that, according to President Lee's national security advisor, the two leaders agreed to cooperate on the shipbuilding industry and had meaningful discussions on nuclear energy cooperation. When it comes to modernizing the alliance,
we're adjusting specific phrases, but there's a broad consensus.
He added that South Korea aims to strengthen joint defense security through modernizing the alliance, hinting at a hike in Korea's defense spending. With regard to Trump mentioning that he wanted to ask Seoul for U.S. ownership of the Korean land used by U.S. forces stationed in Korea, we added that he needed to find out the background behind such remarks.
With the E-Trump summit concluded, eyes are now on how North Korea's Kim Jong-un will respond to their calls for dialogue, with the inter-Korean ties still looking frosty. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Washington, D.C.
Beyond security on the economic front, the two leaders reaffirmed their intentions to bolster partnership in the shipbuilding industry and more. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has details.
Closing the tariff talks and boosting economic ties topped President Lee Jae-myung's agenda at his summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. Meeting on Monday at the White House, the two leaders zeroed in on shipbuilding and other economic cooperation, the earlier means for South Korea to negotiate a lower tariff rate.
말씀하신 조선 분야뿐만이 아니라 제조 분야에서 르네상스가 이루어지고 있고 그 과정에서 대한민국도 함께하게 되길 기대합니다.
President Trump also took the chance to tout the New Deal, emphasizing the importance of the big portion of the $350 billion investment package going into shipbuilding.
We are thinking about contracting some ships. They build them very well in South Korea. They're also thinking about coming to our country with some shipyards to start us on the process of building ships again. Do you know what world?
The summit was also followed by a business roundtable in Washington, D.C. More than 30 business heavyweights from both countries, which are already working together or seeking to do so, came together. This includes Samsung Electronics chief Lee Jae-yong and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, among others. There, President Lee called the business leaders the, quote, backbone of the alliance.
동맹의 바탕은 신뢰이고 신뢰를 높일 가장 좋은 방법은 역시 경제적 교류입니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리 기업인 여러분들이야말로 72년 한미 동맹의 그 역사 자체입니다.
He also highlighted shipbuilding again, vowing to press ahead with the Make America Shipbuilding Great Again project announced last month. He said Korean companies can play a decisive role in reviving the U.S. shipbuilding industry. And in the meantime, he promised strong government support for businesses on both sides. Korean companies, for their part, announced a substantial additional investment pledge in addition to the trade deal.
Korean companies plan to invest $150 billion, joining forces with the U.S. in global markets to usher in a new era of manufacturing renaissance.
The U.S. Secretary of Commerce, who had been involved in negotiating with the Korean government, also touted the economic cooperation.
Today, American and Korean businesses, we aren't just trading goods. We are building a future together.
And as business leaders and government officials got together at the roundtable, 2 contracts and 9 MOUs were signed across 5 sectors: shipbuilding, nuclear power, aviation, LNG, and critical minerals. Kim Doo-yeon, Arirang News.
After a summit at the White House, President Lee Jae-myung addressed an audience at a think tank based in Washington, D.C., during which he shared prospects of a pragmatic alliance with the U.S. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin was there.
Following his first summit with U.S. President Donald Trump, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung laid out his vision for the two countries' 7-decade-long alliance in a speech at the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank.
안보, 경제, 첨단 기술의 3가지 기둥 위에 우뚝 선 미래형 포괄적 전략 동맹은 양국 국민을 위한 실용과 국익의 결정체로서 앞으로 더욱 찬란하게 빛나게 될 것입니다.
The president pledged a more leading role for his whole in security on the Korean Peninsula while maintaining a strong joint defense posture with Washington.
국방비를 증액할 것입니다. 그 늘어난 국방비는 우리 군을 21세기 미래전에서 반드시 승리하는 스마트 강군으로 육성하기 위한 첨단 과학 기술과 자산을 도입하는 데 사용될 것입니다.
This is the first time President Lee has stated that South Korea will increase its defense spending, which the Trump administration has been pressing for. With that modernized alliance, the allies will work to bring lasting peace and denuclearization to the Korean Peninsula.
한미 양국은 북한의 도발에는 강력히 대응하는 동시에 북한과의 대화를 위한 노력도 병행해 나갈 것입니다.
Turning to the economy, President Lee called last month's trade agreement a springboard for deeper cooperation in advanced technologies.
세계 1위 역량을 갖춘 대한민국의 K조선이 미국 조선업의 르네상스를 열어가며 양국이 공동 번영할 새로운 역사적 계기를 만들 것입니다.
Also mentioned was Japan, a crucial partner of the allies, which President Lee visited just before the U.S.
저는 트럼프 대통령과 함께 굳건한 한미 동맹을 바탕으로 한미 일협력을 긴밀히 다져 나갈 것입니다. 3국이 북한의 핵과 미사일 위협에 공동 대처하며 인태 지역과 글로벌 차원에서의 평화와 번영을 위해 더욱 노력해 나갈 것입니다.
The president concluded his 17-minute speech saying that the golden era of the alliance is yet to come.
함께라면 우리는 더욱 위대한 것을 이루어낼 수 있습니다. 그 영광의 순간을 위해서 같이 갑시다.
His CSIS visit was followed by dinner with American opinion leaders. So with day 2 now over, the South Korean president will travel to Philadelphia on Tuesday to tour the Hanwha Philly shipyard recently acquired by Korea's Hanwha Group. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Washington, D.C.
Up next, we cover the amiable atmosphere under which the pleasantries and the press availability session involving the South Korean and U.S. leaders at the White House took place. Our Park Hyo-bin reports.
The first South Korea-U.S. summit since President Lee Jae-myung's inauguration opened a warm display of camaraderie between the two leaders. As President Lee arrived at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump came out to greet him, and the two exchanged a firm handshake.
We're going to have a good meeting. We're going to have a great meeting.
When the two leaders entered the White House to sign the guest book, Trump personally pulled out the chair for Lee. After Lee finished signing, Trump asked for the pen, and Lee readily offered it as a gift.
Is that your pen?
네, 가지고 있는.
Very good. It's a nice pen. Do you want to take it with you? I won't use it, but I'm going to keep it because I don't want to use it. I want to have it as an honor and keep it in a very important place. Okay. And I have gifts for you. Before we leave, we have to remember.
Moving into the Oval Office for the summit, the two leaders exchanged kind words. President Trump once again congratulated Lee on his election victory, while Lee praised the U.S. economy.
And it's a great honor to be with you, and congratulations on your election. That was a big one.
제가 보니까 사상 최고치를 경신하고 있던데 오늘은 잠깐 조정되고 있지만 아주 훌륭하게 미국이 다시 위대해지고 있는 것 같습니다.
The misunderstanding over Trump's Truth Social post, which had heightened tensions before the summit, was also put to rest. Earlier, Trump had written on his Truth Social that purge or revolution seemed to be unfolding in South Korea, adding that the U.S. could not do business there, apparently referring to investigations into former President Yoon Suk-yeol and alleged raids on U.S. military bases. During the summit, the issue came up and the misunderstanding was dispelled as Lee clarified the situation.
I heard from Intel that there was a raid on churches. We're going to talk about that later. I haven't spoken about it yet, but when we meet. And, that would be too bad if that's the case. But I did hear that from Intel, that there was a raid on churches closing.
지금 대한민국은 아시는 것처럼 친위 쿠데타로 인한 혼란이 이제 극복된 지 얼마 안 된 상태고 특검에 의해서 사실 조사가 진행 중입니다. 미군을 직접 수사한 게 아니고 그 부대 안에 있는 한국군의 통제 시스템이 어떻게 작동했나를 확인한 것 같습니다.
I am sure it's a misunderstanding. I'm sure that's going to be worked out fine.
Despite the tensions stirred by Trump's remarks ahead of the talks, the two leaders wrapped up their first summit on a conciliatory note. After the summit, Trump called Lee a very good guy, very good representative for South Korea. Lee also said the talks went very well, adding that they had discussed far more issues than expected. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, back here in Seoul, a forum took place on this Tuesday to touch upon the partnership between Seoul and Washington for economic security. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Trust and effective policies are crucial to build a win-win partnership between Korea and the United States. Hours after the first summit between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., a forum in Seoul gathered industry officials and policy experts to discuss the future of economic security cooperation.
So based on the common understanding reached at today's summit, I believe Korea and United States will work more closely in these vital areas such as shipbuilding and critical minerals and also the energy security.
While the first E-Trump meeting set a positive tone for economic cooperation, there was no joint statement released afterwards. Thus, it seems Seoul and Washington will continue to fine-tune trade relations and details on investment. According to one former US trade official, the era of tariffs and renegotiations will persist for the foreseeable future. Facing such uncertainty, he suggested Seoul commit to sectors vital to the US economy in the long run, from shipbuilding and energy to strategic technologies such as advanced semiconductors.
So it's about jobs in the United States, it's about jobs in certain states in the United States, it's about expanding our industry and our supply chains and our capability. Those take time to develop, the training takes time, but the more you do that, the more you invest, the more likely it is that you'll be able to have a long-term, stable relationship with the United States.
But first, active measures are needed to build trust and cooperation, particularly in highly sensitive areas such as building naval vessels and future technologies. Key industry players such as Hana Ocean, SK Gas and POSCO Future M called for effective policy action in the US, as current legislation and a lack of incentives hinder foreign investment in America. Seoul's foreign ministry aims to foster a conducive environment for mutually beneficial partnerships, offering attractive Korean business opportunities while stably nurturing US competence and jobs in strategic sectors.
I believe Korea and United States are ideal partners for economic security. We lead in technology and manufacturing, and above all, we share a relationship built on trust. Currently, we are facing very serious and complex challenges in areas such as emerging technologies, supply chains, and also energy security.
To navigate global changes and address common challenges together, Deputy Minister Kim Jong-un said Korea and the US are working to build a future-oriented, comprehensive strategic alliance. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you planning to make? I also want to ask this question to Mr. President.
Who are you with?
I'm Song Mi-jin. I'm from South Korea's Arirang TV. Thank you so much. So, as mentioned earlier, United States is South Korea's most important and closest ally. So, in this point of view, I would like to ask you and also President Lee, what do you think are the key ways to make the South Korea-U.S. alliance greater?
Well, I think it's great now. I feel very warmly toward South Korea. I will tell you that I have a lot of people in business that I deal with that are from South Korea. They love Trump because they feel I've saved. I think you would have had a nuclear war if I weren't. I think you would have had a nuclear war, North Korea and South Korea. I think it would have been a disaster. You're only 60 miles away from Seoul. They don't even need nuclear. They have their cannons, howitzers. And they have them buried in the mountain. You know what I'm talking about. And I think you would have had, if I didn't win that election, if Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary, won that election, I think you would have had a nuclear war. It would have taken place, and it would have been horrendous for everybody, including them. It would have been very bad for them because we would have had to enter the picture, and we are the most powerful nuclear country in the world by far. Russia's second, China's third. China's going to catch eventually, 5 or 6 years. They're working to catch. One of the things we're trying to do with Russia and with China is denuclearization. And it's very important. One of the things I discussed with President Putin the other day, it wasn't just that, it was also other things. And I think the denuclearization is it's a big aim. But Russia's willing to do it, and I think China's going to be willing to do it too. We can't let nuclear weapons proliferate. We have to stop nuclear weapons. The power is too great. Okay? Thank you.
In a tight leadership race that went down to the wire, the main opposition People Power Party elected Jang Dong-hyeok as its new leader. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun covers his victory and its political implications.
The main opposition People Power Party has chosen Jang Dong-hyeok as its new leader. Jang edged out rival Kim Moon-soo in the runoff on Tuesday, securing 50.27% of the votes, a lead of just over 2,300 ballots. The leadership race went to a runoff after no candidate secured a majority in the first ballot. Kim, the party's former presidential candidate, had initially polled strongly. But Jang, a younger lawmaker seen as representing generational change whilst aligning closely with the hardline conservative base, consolidated support among in-party voters and emerged victorious. In his acceptance speech, Jang framed his election as a turning point.
Choosing me as party leader marks the beginning of reform. I will renew the People Power Party and lead it into the future, carrying the wishes of our members.
Political analysts say Chang's win represents a rejection of more conciliatory voices in the party and instead signals closer alignment with the hardline anti-impeachment conservative base. This raises the prospect of even sharper clashes with the Democratic Party, which has used its parliamentary majority to push through a series of contentious reform bills in recent weeks. The PPP has countered by staging marathon filibusters to delay legislation, heightening political gridlock and fueling partisan tensions at the National Assembly. The DP's leader, Tong Chong-le, branded the PPP a party of insurrection shortly following the announcement of its new leadership, and expectations are mounting that parliamentary gridlock will only deepen. Chang also faces significant challenges within his own camp, as he now inherits not only the reins of the party, but also the challenge of restoring its political momentum. He faces the immediate task of strengthening internal cohesion while preparing for next June's local elections, where the PPP hopes to secure more regional leadership posts and regain influence on the ground. Moon Hae-ryung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, government officials and ruling lawmakers sat down early on this Tuesday to hammer out an expansionary fiscal policy with a tangible boost in R&D spending. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young has more.
The government's 2026 budget plan will emphasize expansionary fiscal policies, marking a shift from the previous administration's focus on fiscal soundness. The direction was hinted at during a budget meeting between the government and the ruling Democratic Party on Tuesday. The DP said the economy is struggling and people's livelihoods are under even greater strain, stressing that national finance must play an active role for the people.
The government and the DP decided to learn from the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's fiscal mistakes and make next year's budget support people's livelihoods and respond to global uncertainties. As the first budget of the government of people's sovereignty, we will ensure taxpayers' money is used fully for the people.
At the meeting, the government and the DP called the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's R&D cuts a mistake and agreed to set next year's R&D budget at a record high. They plan to expand spending on research into semiconductors such as GPUs to make South Korea a top 3 AI power and build an AI-driven society. The plan also includes raising the age limit for childcare subsidies beyond the current cap of below 8. Deputy Prime Minister for Economy and Finance Koo Yoon-chul said the Jae-myung administration's first budget will be performance-oriented, cutting what's unnecessary and investing boldly in areas that drive recovery and growth. The budget plan is expected to be approved at a cabinet meeting this Friday. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Also, on the local front, consumer confidence has jumped to its highest level in 7 years and 7 months, according to the Bank of Korea on this Tuesday. The Consumer Sentiment Index in August rose to 111.4, up 0.6 on month. This latest finding marks the 5th consecutive month of rises, driven by strong exports and recovering consumption. A reading above 100 indicates an optimistic consumer sentiment, while a reading below 100 indicates a pessimistic outlook. Over in the Middle East, an air assault against a medical institution in southern Gaza by Israel has triggered harsh condemnation. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Israel launched a deadly airstrike on a hospital in Gaza on Monday, killing and injuring dozens, including journalists and rescue workers. According to Gaza's health ministry, Israel first struck the Nasser hospital in the south of the Gaza Strip on Monday morning, which was followed by a second strike as rescue teams rushed to evacuate the wounded. At least 20 people were killed and many more were wounded. Among the dead are 5 journalists covering the war from agencies including Reuters, the Associated Press, and Al Jazeera. The Gaza Health Ministry condemned what it called a heinous crime, adding that these strikes disrupted surgeries and stripped patients of their right to treatment. The World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus appealed for an immediate ceasefire, warning that Gaza's already limited medical services are being devastated by repeated attacks. The Foreign Press Association also denounced the airstrikes, saying they came without warning, while accusing Israel of killing the journalists. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed regret, calling it a tragic mishap. He insisted Israel's war is aimed at Hamas, not civilians, and promised a full investigation. Gaza's health ministry says more than 62,000 people have been killed and over 158,000 injured since the conflict began. It also claims that hunger and malnutrition have killed at least 300 people. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, K-pop boy band BTS's Fake Love has surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify as of this past Sunday. According to its agency, Big Hit Music, on this Tuesday, this marks the group's 5th song to join the billion-stream club. Released in 2018, Fake Love is a hip-hop song that has also made waves on the US Billboard chart and the UK official singles chart.
As of midday today, all of the heavy rain warnings in inland areas have been lifted as rain clouds have passed. Most of the rain stopped this afternoon, but the eastern parts of the country will have rain until tonight. Due to the rain, today's daytime temperature was 1 to 2 degrees lower than yesterday, but with high humidity, the heat felt worse than the actual readings. Seoul will rise to 32 degrees Celsius tomorrow, and there will be many places above 30 degrees, mainly in Jeollabuk-do province, the Gyeongsang-do provinces, and Jeju Island, where a heatwave warning is in place. Tomorrow morning, Seoul, Gwangju, and Daegu will start off at 24 degrees, Chuncheon and Gyeongju 22 degrees. Highs will move up to around 31 to 32 degrees across the country. There's a possibility that the heatwave warnings will be expanded again tomorrow around the western regions. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, and today we touch upon the South Korea-US summit.